Hello, guys, and welcome. My name is Matt Muldoon, and this is the Obsessed with God podcast. My guest on the podcast today is Shaman Wade. Wade and I carry on with our ongoing conversation, and like all conversations I have with Wade, he didn't disappoint. Every time I think we're going to have just like a casual conversation or talk about something light, Wade changes my life again. And he did it with this conversation. He and I, at the beginning of this podcast, we speak about, Wade speaks more about when things happen to you in your life that are negative and how you reconcile them, how it impacts you, and then how you reconcile them. And this conversation is one that I needed, and I'm so grateful for this guy in my life. I can't even tell you. So, without further ado, here is another installation of my ongoing conversation with Shaman Wade. Enjoy. We as seekers are all searching for that divine experience with our God. Listen in as we discuss different people's stories and perspectives about God from their walk of life and from their part of the world. My name is Matt Muldoon, and this is the Obsessed with God podcast. We're live, Wade.
Awesome.
Nice to see you again. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Wonderful. How was you're back from your farm? How was your time?
Good. Yeah, it was good. It was I was kind of keeping people abreast through Facebook. So I think I'm getting a little bit better at Facebook. Showing kind of what life is like up north and on the old Buffalo Ranch, and just kind of a piece of my life away from my everyday shamanic work. And so it's good to be back. It's been busy, but it's always kind of a transition, stepping in from out of one world into the other. It's sometimes it's seamless, but there's always residual from one to the other, and it's a process, But
Sure.
keep me busy, which is cool, But yeah, it's been good.
Did you get any rest in, or were you just exclusively working up there?
No, just working. It did rain on one of the weekends, so it's slowed things down, but you kind of just direct your energy to things you can do when it's raining.
That's right.
Yeah. But no, pretty busy, and there's so much things to do when you're away. It's just keeping at it, just keeping the process flowing, to be
For
honest
sure.
with you.
Trying to fix everything that was broken the last time you were there and
Yeah,
deciding what gets fixed this time.
trying to get a truck going and spend a day on that, and still no luck, no fuel going through, and should have just called the mechanic and wasted a day,
Yeah,
and
that's right.
yeah, but otherwise it was good. But it brings back, like, you deal with hardships, that's for sure. I kind of alluded to some of those in our last conversation, and it was funny. Like last night, I was making dinner, and I was I like to play a lot of records, so I was looking for some reason. Rolling Stones popped in my head, and I haven't listened to a lot of Rolling Stones for a long time, and I thought I wanted to listen to Exile on Main, so I went to my record collection, started searching through, and no luck, and I came across a Wayne Shorter album, Speak No Evil, and it's one I've had for years, and I haven't explored it as deep as I've wanted to, and so I put it on the old record player, and great record, but just the title of it started to kind of sit with me, Speak No Evil, and then kind of I was reflecting on some of the experiences I had back home when I was farming, and it's funny, like in the context of spirituality and trying to live a positive, good life, and just bad things happening, And I mentioned, like, I've had my bison herd, the gate broken down a few times and fences cut and them getting out, and out on the land I've had one of them killed. It looks like it was hit by a vehicle. Someone, I don't know if they're chasing them, and poor thing was laying in the field for we don't know how long, and it had to put it down. And then going out on a piece of our land where a very beautiful, really private piece of land that no one can really get to, and then someone was out there and they like graffitied a tree with their initials, and when they were there, like on the perfect spot where you stand to get this breathtaking view, and you look and there's someone's initials, and the date they were there, It's like, who would do such a thing?
Yeah.
This is beauty. And then I had like an event where someone stole stuff from me. Like I had this stack of disc blades for my disc. Like, so I
Hmm.
pulled behind the tractor to brand new. My dad, before he'd passed, had redid the front gang and had this stack of brand new disc blades on the back of this flatbed truck, like with all this other like junk and equipment. So you couldn't even see that they were there. So, and it was probably about 1,000 pounds, and
Yeah.
someone stole them. And in their place, they put this like attachment to a bulldozer, a cat, like right there. And there's still the bar through it, like where they lifted and put it there.
Hmm.
And the thing that kind of is disturbing, it's either someone I know, or a family member who did it,
Hmm.
that ripped me off of something I need, came in when they knew no one was looking. And this is our original family farm where my grandfather had owned, which has been subdivided. So there's a few families that have subdivided and live there now. So there's lots of eyes there. So someone, took the time to, when no one was watching, to go in and grab a specific thing where no, you wouldn't even see it there. There's so many
Yeah.
things, and just really kind of wrestling with that, like bad things happening to you, maybe someone close to you betraying you, and really, and then also doing shamanic work, like where
Hmm.
are the spirit helpers protecting me, where is
Yeah.
God in this, like what am I doing wrong to deserve this? And just really kind of dealing with these types of feelings, and not trying to, and not being overcome by them and being pushed to a dark side, because it's very
Hmm.
easy to want to have revenge, right? That's human nature, to want to have, we all think these ways, but trying to temper these kind of emotions, and also feeling the hurt of being betrayed by someone you probably know, that took
Hmm.
advantage of you because you knew you weren't there to watch over something. And just kind of sitting with all that in the context of spirituality, but the reality is bad things happen,
Yeah.
and these are crooks, and there's a karma to be paid to every action we do, to be honest with you. And but it still doesn't exonerate them, or it doesn't really do any good for me to know that. It's still, I'm out whatever thousands of dollars, and now I have a disc with the back blades aren't that great,
Hmm.
and it's just trying to wrestle with these sorts of things, and these things happen. You could be the most spiritual person, but bad things can still happen to you. And how do you deal with that, and what's the right recourse? And I don't know.
Oh man, I fight with this so hard. This is honest to God the biggest issue I have with like trying to have spirituality in my life and still living in a real world. And like every time I hear, I think it was Einstein said that the only thing you have to decide is whether you live in a loving or a hostile universe. And so every time I read those things, I always thought like, if I embrace that this is this loving place, these things will be done with, right? Like you say, like someone's takes something from you, or someone does you wrong, or something bad happens. But that's such a hard problem for me, man. Every time stuff like that happens, I'm like, I also, well, like when things happen against me, like you said about like feeling vindictive or feeling vengeful, like, I'm considerably better than I was as a kid. But when things happen to me or against me, or like you say, like especially if it's like an intimate thing to you, not necessarily intimate, but if somebody drives into my yard and takes something off of one of my trailers, like you say, somebody knew what they were looking for. So who was here looking for it? And that's it's such a mind game, right? Because then you spend all this time trying to exist in this loving universe, and you're like, I think I'm doing things right. I think I'm doing things right. Then you're going to put new discs on the tractor, and all the discs are gone, and somebody left a ripper shank from a bulldozer on the trailer. Like, what? Where's this loving universe we've been talking about here, guys?
Exactly, right. And it's, how do we move forward? And so I don't know. I'm wrestling with that, and it's funny how, pull a record out, and the next thing you know, you're kind of contemplating these things. And but it's also, I think we've talked about this before in drum circles or ourselves together, just this whole notion of uncertainty, and this whole notion of us as humans want to have answers. You want to know things. Will I ever know who stole my disc blades? Probably not. Maybe I will. Maybe I will find out, and then I'll have to take recourse, whatever's the appropriate, way to do that. But it's we live in this uncertain world, and as humans, we crave certainty. We crave certainty. We want to know how life is going to turn out. We want to have the answer. And really, the ironic thing or the paradox of all this is it's the uncertainty that actually frees us. It's living in uncertainty which gives us our freedom. We think it's the opposite. We think that by living, by knowing what's going to happen, by if we knew everything that was going to happen, I'd be free and have nothing to worry about. That's a fatalistic view, where all the outcomes are known, and that actually is throwing us into a prison. It's to have true freedom is to live in true uncertainty where we don't know what's happening, and we live in total freedom to make choices and have free will and to live our life in this kind of darkness. And that's where the freedom truly is. And as humans, we push that away, and we're uncomfortable with sitting in that because there's a discomfort in that, there's an uncertainty, and there's a lot of fear. And it's our true freedom comes through embracing the uncertainty. And I have to embrace the uncertainty with all this as well. Sure, anger comes up, and frustration and betrayal, but I have to temper those emotions and have trust. And we also then want to distrust our compassionate spirit helpers, want to distrust God for why aren't you looking out for me? All I do is give my life to others, all I do is try to help people. All I do is I've never stolen anything ever in my life. Why should someone steal something from me? I mentioned it before, my sister was killed by a drunk driver. How is this fair? What did she do to deserve this? What did my family do to suffer this, grave, unthinkable thing that we had to go through? Well, we didn't deserve it. It's a part of life, unfortunately. Bad things happen. It's really about how do you handle them? What do you do to move forward, and how do you learn from this experience?
So what do you do in that situation, Wade? Because, and maybe I'll speak to my own experience, because I'm sort of the way that I'm trying to deal with that or reconcile these things is I really try and actively in my life not give in to the highs and lows. And I'm really good at it when it's not an emotionally triggered thing. So I'm trying to move out towards the anger spectrum and the happiness spectrum, because it's easy for me, when it's not a real big deal to like what you're saying, like this just is what it is. It's okay. Like this can happen for me. But when it's something like if someone steals from me, I spiral out of control. Or if it's like, I'm a lot better with like happiness. Like I think in my addictions recovery, I was able to bring that in, but I'm still on like the anger side, man. Like if our roles were switched, I'd be talking through my teeth if I was you. And I just I'm spiraling. I don't lose control by any means, but whoever stole from me is living rent free in my head for months. And that's all I'm thinking about is this person that did this to me. How do you reconcile that? Because I can't.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to reconcile it. I guess there's only so much I can do. Maybe the police have to get involved. I don't know, right? But there's equal and opposite reaction to all actions, and it's tough, right? And in terms of anger, yeah, I mean, I was angry for sure, And if I would have caught them red-handed, what would I have done? I don't know. Who knows? I grew up from a redneck place. Who knows what would happen? I don't know. Hopefully, compassion. I don't know, right? I'm not going to say that I'm this all-knowing, purely compassionate being. Well, I'm not. It's tough, but it's really important, I think, to just try to digest it and kind of see how things play out. And I guess the other thing, what I wrestle with is through my spiritual experiences, I tend to, I don't know if the words undermine or not appreciate the physical like I once did. So at some point they're just it's just a stack of metal, right? Is what it is. Sure, I needed it, and sure, it fits on my disc, which I need to work in the fields down with this fall, but at the same time, it is just a stack of metal. So it's also reconciling these things. Because when we have a deep spiritual experience, it kind of sometimes it trivializes and makes things mundane or not as important. For me, money was a big thing. I think money is important, and that's been a trick where you start to experience what God is and the natural inherent way life or existence is, and then you throw money into it, and it's like, I really want to chase this dollar around my whole life when nothing I can buy that's going to really bring me happiness, to be honest with you. There's a time when it was growing up in the North Country, man, going to the city, $100 in your pocket when you're, a kid is like heaven. You
Yeah.
go to the music store and you stack up, and it's wonderful. You live for that. But now it's like nothing really, buying something doesn't really increase my happiness. So it's that process too. It's just a material thing, but at the same time, someone stole something, and it's a betrayal.
Mhm.
So that's not okay. That upsets the natural fabric of good life, of treating others in good community and kindness. So I don't know. I'm wrestling with it, to be honest with you. I'm not, and the thing is, I guess what I've learned through the more angry I get, it ruins my life,
Mhm.
and it creates anxiety within me, and it disturbs me. And I learned at a young age. I remember, I don't know, studying for exam in high school. I always had a lot of anxiety, and I realized, or worrying about girls or something, and I
Mhm.
realized all I do is worry about this, and it's just creating me stress. I'm not going to worry about this anymore because I can't handle the stress anymore. I
Mhm.
kind of had a breakthrough at that point where I realized there's certain things out of my control, and I can't worry about them because it just creates such stress in me. And, I can't live a healthy life. It's hard to do. I'm a lot
Mhm.
better at that than I used to be. So I try not to over worry about things, but I'm human, and
Yeah.
we'll see where it all goes.
It. But yeah, but like I hear what you're saying, but like my brain still goes back to the same spot. It's like they're living in there rent free, Wade, and I can, and I same as you, just without the same result. Like I'll sit there and I'll say like Matt, like, calm down, man. Like it's like you just said. I would say the same things. That was just a. I've had lots of things stolen from me. I was actually robbed. The worst feeling I've ever had in my entire life is when I was going to SAIT my last year at SAIT, I came home the day after I moved into my new apartment, and my door was kicked in off the hinges. And so immediately I'm like, here we go, right? They stole everything from me to the point where, honest to God, it was laughable.
Yeah.
I was still chewing tobacco at the time, and they stole two. So I'm having the most stressful day of my whole life. They stole my clothes. They stole everything but my bed and my big screen TV because they couldn't get my TV up the stairs. But it was like the Grinch. They stole two unopened tins of Copenhagen beside my bed. And I was like standing in my room. And I honest to God, there was so much stuff missing. I thought it was a joke. I thought one of my friends said, let's go mess with Matt. Let's take all his stuff out of the house. And yeah, it was gone. I called the cops and they came to my house and they just shrugged and they said, sorry, there's been a whole string of burglaries in this part of the city, which was right across from SAIT. Like it wasn't a bad part of Calgary. And they said, there's not much we can do, so just put an insurance claim. And then sort of the salt in that wound of that stuff being stolen from me was I lost my computer that had all of my photos on it for years and years and years. And I went down to Sharky's on 16th Avenue because I knew my my MacBook was going to be in there, and there it was in the case. And I said, I'm here to buy my MacBook back. And the guy behind the counter said, why? It's already been wiped. Perfect, but that person that stole my stuff still lives in my head rent free. And there is times where I drive by SAIT and I see people walking down the road and I'm like, it was that guy. I'll bet it was that guy. But like, it just, I don't, when those extreme things happen to me, I just don't, I, I don't know what to do. It's like I can't support myself in that instance, if that makes any sense.
No, and I agree. It's difficult. I remember one time I used to live by Say Two, a couple blocks north of it, and I had my truck was broken into, and they stole my CD player, my Pioneer CD player. I love music, and man, I just felt so violated. I
Yeah.
remember for like weeks and weeks, I felt so violated, and I wanted, I probably wanted to go pull the fists out and do some damage, back then,
Yeah.
and I had a neighbor recently broken into. A lady just shaken to the core. Like it's really shaken her. Just they
Hmm.
came in and really took a lot of stuff, and it's just really sad that people do this sort of stuff, and because they don't, I think, understand the effect it has on others. To that level of violation, to violate your private stuff, I think they have the right to do that.
For sure.
And how do we deal with that? Well, it can cause psychological damage for some people.
Hmm.
I remember watching a movie years ago, and I forget much of it now. I don't know if it was a Korean movie or Chinese. It was about a monk somewhere who I think went to this temple as a baby, and he got bored with it. I think he left and he went to the city and he got involved with a woman, and the woman cheated on him. So he killed, I don't know, the man or her. And
What
they,
a story, Wade. Now you're going to have to find out and let us all know what it is.
yeah, I can't remember. And then he was in jail for all these years. And then he eventually came back to the temple. It was like on this lake, this beautiful temple on this lake, to find his master again. And I can't remember the rest of it, but it was kind of this whole idea of spirituality and retribution. And I forget the name of it. It probably came out in the late 90s, either Korean or Chinese or Japanese. But it was really good. I'll have to watch it again. Maybe it'll give me some perspective.
No kidding. Well, I feel like that's what I need in those instances is perspective. And it's funny that you're talking about this right now because like it's been such a difficult year for so many people that it's not dangerous living outside of town, but it's not the safest thing either. We live 8 kilometers west of Highway 2. So we're in the middle of nowhere, and we hang a lot of the cops in this little town we live in are, I'm the same age as them. We play the same sports, so we're really good friends. And it's staggering because every time there's like a vehicle that somebody's called in that's driving around out west, I get a phone call from one of my cop friends who says like, "Hey Matt, we don't know what this is, but just heads up. There's a blankety blank blank vehicle driving around. We don't know what they're doing. If you see them, give us a call because we're looking for them right now." And it's been a crazy 18 months because it's been. I mean, they're not trying to be fear mongers. They're just calling me saying like, we actually drove home a couple months ago and there was someone in my yard. And like, I don't handle those things very well. Like we were having a conversation about it immediately, but like, it's such a strange time because there is still so much hardship. So, and that's sort of, I think, a way that I've also tried to reconcile when I've had things taken from me is like, well, if they stole from me, they must have needed it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like that's sort of the one thing I go to is like, maybe it made their life better. I don't know. But it's, again, still rent-free, Wade. They still live right here in my mind.
Well, even up north, I know when COVID hit, organized crime got really bad. In the country, organized crime, but they're out patrolling and stealing and doing these sorts. It's a business, right? So it's quite scary. It's funny. This is another tangent, but it's popped into my head. I don't think I've talked about this on this podcast or not, but it's interesting. As an Albertan, we have a different sense of property rights than a lot of other places in Canada. My wife's from the East Coast, and there it's kind of like property is different. You go wherever you want, do whatever you want. You go on someone's land, no big deal. Here, like there's no trespassing signs, there's no hunting signs. It's like when I grew up, you don't step on someone else's property without their permission. It's just the way it is. Like you're liable to get shot, right? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So in Alberta, it's like that. For whatever, good or bad, I don't know. That's just the nature here. And I remember we were visiting friends in Vancouver, and we went for a drive into Washington State. And we were driving, and my son was probably about maybe 1 or 2, and he had to go to the bathroom. So we're driving down this kind of gravel road out in the country in Washington State, and my wife said, actually, my wife's friend, they're an older couple, they're a bit older than us, they were retired. So why don't we just pull over here? There's an approach going into a field. And I said, okay, let's just take a quick peek here. Mm-hmm. So they get out of you can see the farmhouse just like, a quarter mile just over to the left. And they get out, and the 2 Maritimers, my wife and her friend, jump out with my son, and they jump over the fence and start walking in the field. Me and her husband are Albertans, and we're going, oh, this isn't good. We're standing on the road. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, I could see the truck start up in the yard, and they come down the gravel road. And what are you doing here? I said, look, my son just needs to go to the bathroom. And go, oh, no problem, no big deal. Yep. But it just really highlighted the sense of like property rights, and just from where you're from and your sense of how to respect other people's land. The thing, them being from the East, it's very communal. Mm-hmm. In Alberta, it's very individualistic, and I think it comes a lot from people just having to work. People came here very, very poor. Mm-hmm. They had to work their whole life to really have nothing, and when they had something, they had to protect it. And we're kind of talking about that now, unfortunately. So I think born into that is a sense of kind of private land, So I wish everything, but does everyone respect everything? Well, I gave you one of the most beautiful trees, one of our most beautiful properties, and one of the most beautiful spots to stand. I look and see someone's initials now. It's just sickening, to be honest with you. Who would do such a thing?
And well, and the property rights thing is a strange one because my wife and I are fortunate to have land, same as you. Like it's a weird thing when
Yeah.
you really practice spirituality because
Yeah.
most people, when they say like this is my land, they really believe it's their land, like it's theirs. It was meant for them. And
Sure.
the more perspective you have, it's a goofy thing because you're like, what? I guess my name's on this for a couple of years and then I die and then it just keeps being here anyway. So whose is this actually? But we've been having a lot of not problems, but we've been dealing with the MD in our area recently because they're talking about installing some stuff sort of upstream of we're on a fairly large creek system here, and because of the Crown law, like how the Crown works, right? It's like 50 feet on either side of a waterway is Crown land. So you can walk, as long as you're 50 feet within the water, anywhere in Canada, you can fill your boots. You can walk wherever you want. And that's just law. You don't own to the water. But it's a difficult thing when you have bulls and you have cows and you have horses that are worth 15, 20,000 bucks a shot walking around your field, and you've got people just that can access your land because that's what they get to do. And I don't disagree with them being able to access those things, but it's a weird spot, right? Because what you do on your land is a private thing. Like what happens if somebody walks onto, somebody gets gored by a bull that we have out with the cows right now? Like it's our responsibility if somebody just walks up that creek. And and we're not at the same place the Americans are, like you said. Like I have some friends from Texas that are like, holy moly, like you don't go anywhere at night in Texas if the sun's down. Just stay at home. Try it out the next day. They're crazy. Like they're dear friends of mine who are lovely people. A friend of mine in Austin says that to me all the time. He's like, you don't go out, like you would never go onto someone else's property at night. You'd get shot. And I said, what planet do you live on? Do you really need to shoot at somebody? Well, yeah, it's my land. Okay. That's crazy to me. But
Yeah. It's tricky, right? And it gets into this whole idea of spirituality. People think no one should own land. Well, maybe that's right. Spiritually speaking, why should someone be able to own a piece of land? And why we're all children of this earth? Why can't I walk across my mother or experience all aspects of it? Well, there's a lot of truth to that as well.
Yep.
But what's interesting though is like I grew up on my land. we bought it first we're homesteaders, I guess you could say. So it's always been something we've loved. It's a part of our family. My dad cleared it. You had at that time, if you got a homestead stake, you had to clear a certain acres, but we'd always cleared it not just to wipe all the like our land is beautiful. Like it's all treed and forested with kind of meandering fields that work with the natural landscape. So it's really unique. And so I grew up my whole life picking roots out there, going out there spring, summer, fall. So it's a part of my blood. And I can get where people want to protect it because if people, it's like you're, abusing your children in a sense, right? They're not,
Yep.
they're disrespecting them. That's what it feels like because it's such a part of your life. It's funny. My wife and I have been watching this show called Yellowstone. Have you seen that one yet?
Oh yeah.
So kind of she made me watch it because she said that's kind of a lot like where you're from. I went, what are you talking about?
That's funny.
Yeah. So I mean, it's Montana, right? But you can get the issue with dealing with land and the issues that come with that, and it can be a very big headache. Yeah, but I'm a steward of the land, and I really believe in keeping it pristine. And ideally, I wouldn't care if people were, respecting my land, but our experience has people don't respect it. Unfortunately, they go rut it up, they cut fences, they do whatever they want, they'll shoot whatever they see. It's really unfortunate. If they had the same ethic and wanted to steward the land in a respectful way, then who cares, right? But unfortunately, you don't get that. The people I think that come to you respectfully and don't try to sneak on your land, then you can probably trust. I don't know. It's interesting conversation in terms of the spiritual context.
Completely. But I have one more thing I'd like to say towards that because I grew up in Nanton, and we like all the time I spent in my life was in the foothills and in the mountains. That's how we grew up. Like we were skiing or we were dirt biking or we were whatever we were doing. We were always out there. So we camped out there all the time too. And so if you go west of Chain Lakes towards the mountains, you
Right.
you go through Indian graves through there. So you can't camp in Indian Graves anymore during the long weekends, and they clamp down on all this sort of camping and this sort of stuff. But if you've ever been to people that haven't been out to Indian Graves, like go. All the people that listen to this, you need to go. Go out there and hang out for a day. It's the coolest vibe that you'll find in southern Alberta. But when we were kids, I remember it was 2004, 2005, I think. We were camped out there for May Long weekend, and a bunch of dudes come down from the city with these big mud boggin trucks, and there was this sort of flat stretch of it was grassland that was plateaued beside the creek, and they brought out like 8 trash pumps, set them up beside the creek, flooded that stretch of land, and built their own little mud bog tournament in this like it's it's pristine out there. They just stomped a mud hole out there. And like when you talk about stewardship, right? It's so hard when we grew up with a different line of thinking. Like those guys obviously grew up, you can go out to Wypress and you can do those things. But we didn't do those things here. We were, and we were all kids that had big lifted trucks and dirt bikes. Like we weren't afraid to break things either, but we were like, you guys can't do this here. Like you're not allowed to do this. And they just looked back at us like, why not? This is Crown land. Crown land means public land, means my land, means your land. Get out of here. Yeah. We're like, you can't do that. Like do you know where you are? Don't matter. Okay. But
it was kind of like the graffiti, right? I mean, people tend not to graffiti on beautiful art, but people that do, like, what's wrong with them? Like these beautiful pieces of art, they're going to go ruin. But people tend to have a common sense when they don't destroy beauty. But I mean, not everyone can see beauty, I guess.
But and I can speak to that too. I spent a lot of time spray painting walls in my life, and not like I was never tagging things. I was making pieces of art, and most people that paint most people that are painting walls. The rules are public domain. It's usually not it's usually not private property that you're
right.
that you're dealing, you're doing these things with. But that's such an interesting one too, right? Because when you're living in that world and you're finding walls to paint, and you think you're expressing this amazing idea to the world, right? And this is what I'm going to do. And I used to paint this. I probably shouldn't say this, but I will. So I used to paint Salvador Dali's face everywhere with the David Bowie lightning bolt from Ziggy Stardust. That's what I did everywhere. If you've seen that, that was me. But I used to think it was the most beautiful thing ever. Like everyone should have Salvador Dali in their life. Like you're welcome, people. But I understand why people are why they would say like that's ridiculous. Like why would you spray paint that on the road? Well, it's going to be gone soon anyway. Well, I can see it now. Why is it here? And I get it. Like I get what you said, right? Like some people think it's this beautiful thing, and other people are like, this don't do that. Like you can't spray paint. This is not art. This is crime. And
it's interesting, the whole ball of wax here. And I mean, I don't think there's any right answer. I think we're all trying to do good things, and we'll see where the chips fall, I guess.
And I should say this too. When I became a parent, the moment I became a parent, I was like, oh my God, you can't spray paint things. If the cops brought my kid home and said he was spray painting stuff, I'd have been like, I don't care how beautiful it is. You're not allowed to spray paint walls that you don't own. So I get it.
Hypocrite.
Very much so. Very much so. If someone brings my kids home and says they were tagging stuff, I'm going to be like, I never did that ever. I have some questions for you. Actually, I want to ask you this before we get going on the next thing, Wade. What was it about the Rolling Stones that brought all this to the surface?
Well, it wasn't the Rolling Stones, it was Wayne Shorter.
Speak
No Evil was the title. It's got me thinking about these issues that I'd gone through. I kind of put them on the back burner because as a week ago, I've been home for a week, and for whatever reason, I started thinking about the title, listening to the jazz, and it was a really great album. And that all popped into my head. And what I've learned is that when things pop into my head, you need to deal with it. You can't repress it. And this is, I think it's important to share this and just in terms of the spiritual context. And I don't have a right answer or a wrong answer right now either. I don't know what the answer is. I'm just kind of sitting with it and seeing where things, take me, and also trying to learn from the experience. Maybe be better prepared in the future, realizing, hey, maybe I'm too trusting.
Yeah.
Which is shitty because I like to trust people. It feels good. And to think that may be corrupted within me is really kind of sad.
for
But
sure.
we'll see. We'll see where it goes. It's a learning process for me, and I'm trying to learn from it, and we'll see where it takes me.
Oh, yuck, 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 yuck. I have some questions, Wade, that
Sure.
were asked. They've been sent to me since we started having these conversations. So I'm just going to go from the
Sure.
top down with some of these questions that were asked by people, and most of them are. I shouldn't say most of them. I think every question I was asked by people that don't practice, some practice, I think. But anyway, so I'll start at the beginning.
Sure.
So the very first thing I've been asked, or I was asked, was if shamanism is speaking to spirits around you, why would you need a drum to communicate with them? Like, why couldn't you just do it right now if they're all around you, if they're here presently?
Yeah, and some people can, but you need to have a shift in, we say a shift in consciousness, or be able to perceive with your spiritual perception. So we perceive spirits with our spiritual perception. We don't see them with our physical eyes. We see them with our spiritual perception, our third eye potentially, or we hear them not with our physical ear but our spiritual ear, which are similar yet different. It may still be a sound. Maybe I hear, when I'm doing shamanic work, a hawk crying in my room. Well, it's darn real, but I know there's no hawk in here, but I sure heard a hawk, a screech. So there's a spirit of a hawk with me here. So what the drum or rattle does, it actually, and this has been proven scientifically, a drum or a rattle at 4 to 7 beats per second actually shifts your consciousness, actually shifts your brain waves, and puts you into something called the theta range, which is more of a soft, expanded awareness, which actually allows you to perceive spiritually more easily, and also potentially allows you to leave your body, if you know how to journey, we call it, to move into the spirit realms, and to interact with these different compassionate beings. So with shamanism, we primarily work with compassionate spirits, beings of divine consciousness to want to help alleviate suffering and pain. Now, there's a whole gambit, or a whole mixed bag of spirits that exist out there, the whole range. We say this, we say there's compassionate spirits, there's neutral, and we say non-compassionate spirits. And we don't use the word evil. I know Wayne Shorter used the word evil, but we're not using the word evil because we don't see anything as evil in terms of shamanism. We see everything having a rightful place in the universe. And we say things are often misplaced. And if they're misplaced, if a spirit or anything for that matter is in a place where it shouldn't be, it usually causes a disturbance or a problem for someone. So as shamanic practitioners, what we're doing is we're taking spirits that shouldn't be in this environment and moving into to them where they should be. And it usually resolves the issue. So we don't see them as bad or good. We see them for what they are. Maybe you have to be more cautious with some because they have more potential to harm, but we know how to, we have protocols and things to keep in place, which is wonderful because that's coming from a real place of compassion. And I know a lot of traditions don't. They label good, bad, divine, evil, these sorts of things, and they get into these battles. Whereas we don't see it that way in shamanism. We see as everything has a rightful place in the universe. Ultimately, everything comes from God. Everything, all things come from Great Spirit. All things come from the unmanifested source of existence. All form comes from that. That's our home. That's everything comes from God, I would say. So everything has a rightful place in this universe. If you want to call it bad or good, you can, but if it exists, it has a rightful place. And now when it's not in its rightful place, this is when it causes problems. So going back to your question, you could potentially perceive these things without a drum or a rattle, but most of us use one just to focus us, to make the shift happen very easily, to put us in the shamanic state of consciousness. And now what's interesting, if you're talking about mental health, so there's people that have certain disorders potentially, or maybe that's the wrong word, mental health problems, maybe schizophrenia or paranoia issues that are experiencing spirits. Now, are these real? Are they hallucinations? We'd say they're probably real. It's just that their spiritual perception is wide open. They don't have the ability to turn it off, and their spiritual power is weak or low, so they're often being taken advantage of or bombarded by these spirits, and they can't do anything about it because they can't, because they're in a sick state of, or unhealthy state of being, where they can't do practices or maintain them to raise their spiritual power, and they also are unable to close the doors of their spiritual perception. And often, a lot of people doing drugs. I have a lot of people that are addicts to certain drugs, especially opiates, which are encountering being plagued by spirits. And the issue is I can't help them until they get off the drugs, because the drugs are keeping those doors wide open. Nothing I can do. It's like they come to me. It's like a boat with a hole in the bottom, a leaky boat. I can bail it out, but as soon as you sail away, it's going to fill up again. I mean, you're the only one who can plug that hole, and you have to get off those drugs that are opening the door to this. So, a whole wide range there.
that's super interesting. I have a question because we've never talked about this before, but I've wondered about it.
Yeah,
So if you're addicted, like
yeah.
what you just said, how do you mean it's opening the doors to bad things happening, or is there bad things attached to the things you're doing? Like, would you say that just living that lifestyle opens you up to being, to being able to be reached by these things that aren't going to help you? Or if you're drunk all the time, are they coming to you via alcohol? Or if you're doing opiates, are they coming to you via opiates? Or like how does that happen? In what do you think?
Well, it's probably the chicken and the egg, right? It's probably a bit of both, and the question is, why are they're being tormented? So why are bad spirits tormenting them? Is it a product of their bad life they've lived and the trauma they've experienced, or the child abuse they went through, and these are just manifesting? Or that energy is attracting these types of spirits, or is that the way they're perceiving them in these states of consciousness? I mean, I don't know. And this is why when I do work, especially deep level work, when you're working with spirits, usually something that presents itself as very evil or very harmful, if you start to peel the layers back, it's just something. Usually it's a deceased human soul that's in great suffering or great pain, or that usually has been died in a really horrific sort of way, that is lost, it's suffering, and needs help. And this is why I find this work so beautiful, where we always take a compassionate route where we try to help, not stepping into a place of fear, because fear disempowers. We're working with these spirits to help move them along, because they're bothering humans and tormenting their life. Now, these individuals that are, say, addicts, now the issue is I can take all these spirits away, but if they do nothing to change, just a whole new host of spirits are going to come. So it's a vicious cycle. They've got to kind of clean up their act, get the counseling they need, go to the addiction recovery programs they need, get the spiritual help they need. But you can't force that on someone. They got to make that choice consciously deep within. And even if they do make that choice, it's still a great struggle, because those things have a hook in you. And how do you unbind those hooks? It's very difficult. So I'm not sure if I answered your question 100% there.
Totally.
Yeah.
So even what you said there about, like, if these things have their hooks in you, you have to unspin those hooks. Is that a thing that, or is it a bit of both, to unspin those, to get those hooks out of you? Do you have to do the work in yourself to begin that process, and then you could use someone like yourself, a shaman, to help you exercise that? Or do you think that is that more a personal thing? Like, you have to find that power within yourself, and then you would have a platform to fix yourself? Or how would a person even go about that?
I think it's the willingness to change is the very first thing you want to change. And then I think you need to work with someone who's going to help raise your spiritual power. Maybe you have the ability to raise your own by just cleaning up your act and doing the right things, and going cold turkey or whatnot. Most people don't. So you need someone to help raise your spiritual power. And very often the work that I do, people get frustrated because I want to kind of always go back a few steps. They want me to kind of solve their problem, but I realize, well, I can solve your problem, but you're still the same person going out as you came in. The same problems waiting around the corner.
Yeah.
We need to build your spiritual power. There's wounds down there. We got to start to heal, and we got to be willing to face and confront. And and it's a step-by-step process. And as your power builds, as your spiritual power builds, then you start to heal, and you can start to become more of an active participant in that process. And everything I do is always a spiritual potential. Whatever I do now, you have to go out into your life with this renewed spiritual power and use that opportunity to make changes in your life, to make good choices, to step away from things that are causing havoc in your life or disrupting your life or keeping you down in the gutter. You got to walk away from those things when you have the power.
Yeah.
Because I can't walk away from that for you. You have to. I can give you some spiritual power through healing, but now there's a phase of time where you have, when the power is high again, you need to make some changes in the physical world. You got to manifest this in your life, and it's going to be hard. It's. I always tell people, it took me almost 50 years to get here. It's not going to be fixed like that. There's a lot of work to do after, and most people don't want to hear that. They want to go to someone to fix them and not have to do any work. Well, if that's your belief in this process, good luck. You're not going to ever receive. You're never going to be healed, because
Hmm.
ultimately, the work that I do, I'm a partner, I'm a facilitator. I'm here to open doors for you to build power. But at the end of the day, is you have to do the long hauling and the heavy lifting.
Hmm. I have a lot of conversations about that in my life. Like I'm no healer, but I've been sober for this is my 10th year of sobriety, and I get conversation. I find myself in conversations, and I get people asking me about it constantly, about like what it took, and it blows my mind how few people are prepared to listen to that. Like I don't have anything else other than, well, you're going to lose every single friend you've ever had because they're probably all losers. Your family's not going to help you at all. You exclusively have to help yourself, and it's just a whole bunch of hard work, and it's really going to suck. And everyone's like, why, is there like maybe a book I could read, or should I go somewhere to do it? And you're like, nope, there's nothing you can do. Like, it's just, you got to roll up your sleeves and be so prepared to do this that nothing else matters in your life. And it always surprises me because, you know, when especially when an addict confides in you, you're so aware when you've been to that spot, you're aware of their pain. And like when I was in that spot, like, man, if someone told me to drink gasoline and it would have gone away, I would have done it. And these people it blows my mind. It's like it doesn't fit their paradigm, the people that I've spoken to. It doesn't fit their paradigm of healing or what they think it should be to fix that. Like you say, it's like everyone wants this magic pill. Everyone wants to start shamanism and communicate with God and have one conversation, then it's over. I learned all the secrets of the universe. I'm not doing this anymore. Like and you're
No,
right.
it's incredible. It's like going to the gym. Like you're not going to go to the gym in 1 month or you start January 1st. You're not going to be in shape January 30th, right?
No.
It's not possible. It's like maybe a year or two from now, like going 3 times a week and sticking to your plan and changing your diet and you know cutting out the bad habits. It's a slow process that you have to be committed to. Same with
Yep.
your own spiritual healing. Usually we do have I have profound healings with major breakthroughs, which are beautiful to see, but very often they're very subtle healings that people they want big things, and that people often have to be, no, I want it like last time. But
Yeah.
you mean what I had last time? Like, why am I in control of that? I know that was awesome last time. I wish that could happen again, but maybe that's not what you need today. You got to be open
Yep.
to that.
Absolutely. So the second question, Wade, which is one that I get asked constantly. People that are interested sort of ask it from the sidelines, and then people that are scared of this are just like, ha. But the question is, how do you know that you are not speaking to a spirit that might hurt you? Is what everyone asks. How do you know that? How do you know that it's a loving or a compassionate spirit as opposed to anything else that you might encounter?
Yeah. Training. You have to do lots and lots of training. And so in the process that I teach, there's a lot of steps involved. We create sacred space. We teach you different methodologies and protocols in terms of understanding the geography of the spirit realms and where is safe and where is not safe. And if you're in those kind of unsafe places, how do you keep yourself protected? And then when you're, communicating with a spirit, there's kind of a protocol with understanding, where am I at? Am I in a safe place? And then kind of how you feel, what are some of the signs that may arise to determine if it is a positive or negative spirit. And so I've always been very careful with this stuff. And I probably mentioned this before. I was always very academic, didn't really believe this stuff. I didn't have many experiences with spirits, to be honest with you. I had more revelations and spiritual breakthroughs in my own consciousness and these sorts of things. Spirits weren't a thing I experienced. So the shamanism was kind of like, I don't know if I believe this, I'll be honest with you. But for me, it's just what I've experienced through practice. I can't refute it. It's just, it's obvious when you keep doing the practices. So I've been a very good student of protocol, methodology, wanting to keep myself safe because I realize, hey, I don't really believe this, but what if it is true? And what do I do what am I opening myself up to? And maybe we talked about this before. I can't remember Ouija boards. I never would play with them as a kid. I thought, I don't know what that is. I don't want to open myself up to that. I don't really believe in ghosts or anything like that, but why would I play with something that may have a power to it that I can't control? So I always kind of walk away from that. So, and some people don't know. And I know people that it can be trickster spirits, these sorts of things. And this is why training is so important, especially for someone who's predisposed to seeing spirits and to having them connect with you or make contact with you or being aware of their presence, you need to be able to discern, and you need to get training. Usually if they are, you're someone who has them coming to you, you have a gift and they're trying to make them known to you so you can help them often. So there's things you can do to help them too.
There, so this is off on a weird direction, but I've been thinking about this constantly and about asking you about it because it's been plaguing my mind. Where, so I don't know if you pay attention at all to like the UFO community, what those people think and what they talk about. But there's this really strange thing happening in the world right now where these people are calling it. I can't remember what it is. It's like they're calling it close encounters of the fifth kind. And what these people are doing is they're getting together by themselves or with a bunch of people, and they're sitting down under the open sky. And what they're doing is they're meditating. The premise is they're meditating, and then they're shooting their consciousness out into the universe to try and communicate with something. And some of these people are manifesting lights, or these lights moving around the sky, these sorts of things. And a lot of my friends that are aware that I practice this I have a lot of friends that are just like all into this UFO community, what's happening, and they love it. And it horrifies me that these people are sitting on their lawn, journeying with like no protocols, no nothing. They're just shooting their consciousness out into the middle of nowhere. And then they're excited that there's just like this light that showed up. And I'm like, what do you, am I being overboard with that? You know?
I wouldn't do that personally. And I don't know a lot about alien stuff. I'm not totally captivated by it, but I do watch a show called Ancient Aliens quite a bit.
Yes.
I find it very fascinating. I find in terms of the anthropological sites they go to, it's mind blowing. There's one recently. Did you see the one on the Badlands Guardian? There's this. If you haven't, check it out. It's just like Cypress Hills. It's just in the natural landscape. There's this like Indian head with a headdress, like in the natural land. It's mind blowing. It's just north of Cypress Hills, where I was camping last year. I mean, who would learn about these things? The problem I have with that show is they attribute everything to aliens, everything. Yeah. And from a shamanic perspective, a lot of the things I think they're talking about are spiritual experiences, which have nothing to do with aliens, but they label everything as an alien experience, which is dangerous because you're discrediting yourself. You know, you can't lump everything into the same box. But in terms of aliens, I mean, people report to having alien type of experiences when they journey. You know, depending on where you go, they may encounter an alien. So what does that make an alien? Are they non-physical potentially? Well, I don't know that, you know, or maybe you're experiencing the spirit of an alien. I don't know, but people have reported that for sure. Also with UFO encounters, there is, I mean, I remember reading this years ago. Sometimes it's are they having an actual physical encounter, or is it a spiritual experience they're having, that they're filtering into something they know about, that is that maybe they're really focused on UFOs and they unpackage it as that, or maybe they're having a full blown alien experience. I mean, from my perspective, we live in an infinite world, universe. How could there not be other life? Like if there's one Earth with people on it in an infinite space, well, there's probably a hell of a lot of Earths out there. Or civilizations. How is that not possible? It's funny. I remember years ago I had this spiritual magazine, I forget the name of it, and they showed this picture of like, it was one of the telescopes looking out into the universe, and it's like they took this magnified view, and it was like taking one grain of sand out of that lens, and in that lens they had this picture, and within there was like thousands of galaxies. Out of this spot of one grain of sand would have taken out of this lens that was zoomed in how many ever light years. And you think, like, we live in this enormous beyond belief universe. So of course there's other life form up there. Of course, how could you not? That's rational. It's a rational thought. Have I experienced an alien? No. Like in the physical form? Absolutely not. So I don't know, but I would assume there's definitely other life forms out there for certain. I wouldn't be what they're doing. Why open yourself up to things that can cause harm to you without the right training or protocols?
Well, yeah.
Last thing I will say, a lot of people do this with mediumship, which worries me. We did a lot of training on that, or looking into that. It's big in South America, where people will let a spirit into them. They'll move aside, let a spirit into them, and talk through them. Holy shit! What are you letting into you? In the work we do, we never do that. ever. We'd never even conceive of doing that because it's just what are you opening yourself up to? And people want to have this. They call that a spiritual. I don't call that a spiritual experience, to be honest with you. You're connecting with something that doesn't have a physical body, but I wouldn't call that a spiritual experience, in my definition, anyway. You're connecting with the spirit, sure, but you're opening yourself up to who knows what. To be honest with you.
Well, what you just said is what I've said to every single one of my friends who is practicing this stuff right now, and I'm like, I wouldn't. I'm like, the only thing I ask is, what sort of fail-safe is there? Like this person that taught you this, like what amount of protection are they saying? And they're saying that there is none. Like you're just communicating with these divine things that are amazing and they're wonderful to you. But like that's like what you just said. Like if you are letting something in, or if you're inviting something, if it's compassionate and you've done nothing to set that up to ensure that it's compassionate, you've done nothing other than get lucky. If it's compassionate, is the way that I feel. Like if you're just blasting yourself out into the universe and saying like, here I am, come and talk to me, and you manage to get something that's like entirely compassionate, that just wants to help you, that was lucky. You threw a lawn dart and something good came back, but like it makes me nervous and gives me anxiety even thinking about it, because I have these friends of mine who don't journey at all, but they've read about it. They call it like astral projection, and they do all these, they believe in these sorts of things. And they're all in. They're just like sitting on these lawns trying to communicate with these things. And ultimately what they're doing is journeying, but journeying with, like you say, like no sacred space, no methodology, no practice, no nothing. Like it's so dangerous to me. It just feels like, you're talking to your kids about guns, and then you just load a 9mm and hand it to them and be like, just go shoot the cans behind the barn there. You'll be fine.
That's right. So pointing at yourself.
Yeah, like it might go okay, but then it might go really bad too. But anyway, that was my question about that, Wade. It's become, and you are going to start hearing about this, because it's become this super popular thing on the fringe, and it's starting to bleed into regular people that are congregating in the foothills, and they're probably driving by my house on weekends now to go sit in the foothills and try to talk to these UFOs. And it's like it's becoming a religion, is what it feels like, to be honest with you.
I mean, I have no problem with people searching for higher truths and trying to get understanding and answers, but be careful. What are you opening yourself up to? And get training. Like I don't know much about that, and I think you're right. It's a crapshoot. What are you calling in? Who knows? But I don't know. I wish we had more answers, but we don't. And search and to learn and to ask bigger questions, but keep yourself safe. There's no use harming yourself in that process. What good are you if you're harmed?
Completely.
How can you help the world?
So I had a question too, Wade, that was like, where is it? There it is right there. Can Wade talk about any of his shamanic experiences, or does he not talk about any of them, was one of the questions. Yeah, and I wanted to let you answer that entirely.
Yeah, no, I guess just when the time comes up, I have nothing really to hide, to be honest with you. I think one thing we do with shamanic practices is we don't tend to share with people that will disrespect the experience or disempower the experience. We're careful with who we share with, because by sharing with those that will denigrate what we went through, it's disempowering that experience, and even it can create doubt in ourselves. So we can take it a very empowering experience that people can turn it on us or disrespect it, and it becomes disempowered. So I guess we're careful with who we share things with. But in my workshops, I share a lot. I guess we just haven't got into that on the podcast, and it'll happen. This has been a very spontaneous, natural dialogue. Nothing's really planned except these questions, but otherwise, it's just, we'll get there, I'm sure, just by natural.
Well, and that's honestly been the only way that I've answered that is I've had the majority of the questions that I've had, and there's been a pile of them about that specifically. Like, why aren't you asking Wade about what he's experiencing, or why aren't you talking personally, Matt, about what you're experiencing either? And I suppose the answer is that the questions that the questions of the experiences of yours that I know about, I suppose this conversation to me is a conversation that you and I are having. Like, it's, you know what I mean? Like, I'm asking questions that I'm interested in, so I'm not looking to revisit things, but I think at the same time, I'm aware of how not precious I am about it, but like they're near and dear experiences to me. So it's not a as much as I'll share a lot of things online, like, there's a limit to what I'm like, here, let's share this, like to speak to your shaman one on one and explaining your experiences is totally different than just airing it out for everybody. And I think, like you said, it's, you're not interested in sharing it to have it potentially be ridiculed by somebody who doesn't understand what you were talking about. Like I know I've said that to you a bunch of times. Like I'm way better with it now, but like, talk about people renting space in your mind, man. I had a hard time when I started with spirituality and people would tell me like, that's not real. Like when they would say that to me, I'd be like, my eyes would go all red and they'd just say it's not real. And I'd be like, what are you talking about? Like now I feel like I'm talking to a person who's telling me the sky is green. And I'm like, you can't see that it's blue. It's not, it's green. But I think that's why I haven't asked those questions of you is, they're,
Yeah, I'll take specific questions for sure at some point. If people have questions that Matt know, and I can definitely share what I think is appropriate. And the other thing about this type of work is we don't want to fill people's mind with what they should expect, because it gets in the way of what's going to happen for you naturally. Because you can't have the same experiences I've had or Matt's had or someone else. You'll have the experiences you're meant to have. So when you do a workshop with me, I'm very careful not to kind of load your mind with preconceived notions or bias you. I want you to have a blank canvas that you can just experience what is happening for you, experience what spirit wants to show you today at this moment. Because once we start to project, we start to look for something. When we look for something, we usually miss what spirit's showing us. And that's what happened to me for quite a long time. I read lots of books and I had an idea in my head what I should be experiencing. That wasn't the case. We all see and perceive spiritually differently. And we have to learn what our gifts are. And we need to have an open canvas so we can communicate directly with spirit or compassionate spirits or whatever it is how you want to call it, and just be guided through that process and not let anything stand in the way of that. And that comes through direct experience, not through our mind, not through what I know or what I was told. It's about dropping everything, becoming in the right open present space and engaging certain protocols to be able to experience what's happening for you. A lot of people walk away disappointed with this work. I did quite a number of workshops before I had any experience, but it wasn't that I wasn't having experiences. I was pushing away the subtle experiences I was because they weren't what I read about. Well, that's just a mosquito buzzing around. That's nothing. Get out of here.
yeah.
I want to have a big experience. I read about them, but I don't see very clearly spiritually. Like vision wise, I kind of sense on a very subtle level, see very shadowy images. And until I looked into those shadowy images, which I thought were nuisances, then the whole world opened up for me. I still see shadowy images, but I have a deep level of knowing with that, of what's being communicated and what I need to do. But that's the gifts I have, and we all have to learn what our gifts are. So yeah, I'm open to sharing for sure. And that'll come when the time's right, I guess.
For sure. This question is sort of in the same line. It might have been the same person, but they said, is there any rules to talking to spirits and sharing what you know? Like, is there, I think her question was, did they have an expectation for you to share it or for you to not share what they've shared with you?
It's common sense, what I would say. It's it's very often you got to be careful, because when you communicate with compassionate beings, they exist beyond space and time. So the spirit realms, there's no physical attributes to it or space or time. So when you try to communicate that knowledge into this ordinary reality where we have space and time, a lot of this information doesn't communicate very clearly across those lines. So you have to use a lot of common sense and really have developed the abilities to really kind of understand and know what the message is, and then what to do with it when you have that information, and also understanding in terms of the context you live in. I've lived in places where you can't talk about this sort of thing. You can't. You might be burnt to the stake, to be honest with you. So what good is it me being burnt at a stake? There's no good in that. So you got to use your common sense about what you share, how you share it. Also being aware of how biased am I with this? How much of my own ego is filtering this through what I was told? And this is one of the great dangers with. It comes to our maturity and our experience. The less mature and experienced we are doing this work, it's very easy to project our own meaning and understanding from our own ego and not get the whole message, these divine messages that are coming through, or these spirit messages, we could say, from compassionate beings, and not getting their essence completely because we kind of taint them with what we think is right, our own worldview. So we've got to be very careful with that. Or even when we have deep spiritual experiences, we can potentially elevate ourselves. That I am special. I had a spiritual experience. I'm special now. I'm better than all these people. And that's not the case whatsoever. I'm not better than anyone. I just have maybe a bit more deeper knowledge that if everyone had that knowledge, we'd be in a better place. So we got to be careful with all this stuff. So yeah, it's kind of use common sense. It's developing your own skills and maturity and understanding of these things and knowing what the right place to share this is with the right people is what I would say. Excuse me.
That's a really good answer. This one I like too, because I imagine you get a pile of this because I've heard a pile of this one. And this person asked, I've seen spirits my whole life. Do you think I'm a good candidate to learn shamanism?
Well, I would say everyone's a good candidate. It's just more of a willingness to learn and to really do the hard work around it. Obviously, if you see them, well, then you have a natural gift to see them. That perception's open, and if you're someone who sees them, very often they make themselves present to you because they need your help or they want to work with you. So I would say, yeah, I would. Why if you have that gift, why not train it? Is what I would say. You're definitely a really good candidate. But if you don't see spirits like me, I never saw any. I was still a good candidate, and we all bring a different gifts to the table. It doesn't matter if you see them or don't see them. It's more about the process of wanting to learn this methodology, and also understanding this has been around for millennia. Like there's for me, it's always been the deep healing aspect, the deep healing work that I see every day, that people that are so stuck in their life and the pain they're going through, to do a session and to have that transformation happen, it's just such a beautiful thing to witness. And it's not me doing it. I can't do that, to be honest with you. It's me working with these compassionate beings that kind of empower me and guide me and show me and give me the visions that I need to kind of to give this healing. And so, yeah, definitely a good candidate, but so is anyone who has a willingness to engage this work and just to stick with it. And I tell people, I just had a workshop last weekend. I'm sure there's people that walked away and I don't know, like nothing really happened for me. Well, that's fine. Maybe nothing was meant to happen to you. Maybe you're being tested. And it's a question of, do you want to follow this path? So you can walk away really quickly from one failure, or you can persist and keep with it because you feel in your heart this is something you're meant to do, and keep with it. Keep breaking those walls down, those barriers, and stick with it until you get to where you need to get to.
I imagine that's a hard one. If you're doing the course, you want to do this, like you want to do this work, you want to have those experiences. I assume that your workshops, I mean, I guess just because the ones that I've participated in, like nobody is ever really left behind. And I imagine if you start feeling like you're being left behind with your own perception, it would be a hard one to swallow because you're like, you showed up there and you're like you said, I'm ready for my big experience. Light the fireworks, Wade. And
Exactly.
like when that doesn't happen, I can't imagine that plaguing your mind, right? Like, sure there's a lot of like, am I not good enough things going through people's minds, but.
No, that's what I went through, so I can really empathize with them because I probably went to 3 workshops, tried to journey at home all the time. This is after someone said, "Hey, you're a shamanic healer," and like I mentioned before, like I was working in the corporate world and I didn't enjoy it, so I thought maybe there's something to this. So I trained and learned, and nothing happening. Joke's on me. Am I this gullible to keep at this? But I'm glad I did. But it was a real lesson for me because I tended to excel at other aspects of my life, very academically, athletically excelled, very naturally, very easily. And the thing I was meant to do was just a grind. It was such a struggle that it's kind of a miracle that I didn't turn away, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But I just kept thinking, well, there's something here. There's something here. I got to keep pushing. So I can see people that are struggling and I say, hey, that's fine. I struggled probably worse than you did. If you have a willingness to learn, stay with it, see what happens. Don't turn away until you lose that desire to learn and be trained in this system, to be honest with you.
So this last question, I will ask it. This is a lazy question. The person who sent me this knows who they are. This is lazy, and you should have answered this on your own, but I'll say it anyway. They asked, what is the Foundation for Shamanic Studies and why was it started?
Yeah, so I mean, the foundation for Shamanic Studies. So I am a faculty member with them. I did. I trained with a local shaman named Manfred Lucas before I went to this foundation. But Manfred had trained, I believe, with the foundation at some point as well. So there's lots of similarities between his trainings and the trainings I went on to learn. So they were started by a man named Michael Harner. He was an anthropologist. He was pure hardcore scientist. He didn't believe in spirits. He didn't believe in anything outside of what the mind could perceive or what we could perceive in everyday life. So he finished his PhD. This is in the late 50s, and he went on to do a postdoctorate, and he ended up going down into I think it might have been Ecuador, somewhere in South America, to do field study, to study a tribe down there, to live with them, to study them. And like a good anthropologist, he was taking notes, he was doing his field notes, he was studying their mannerisms, their social behaviors, and all these sorts of things. And at some point, they developed a real trust with one another, a real trust, and they started to invited him to take part in some spiritual ceremonies. And as a good anthropologist said, sure, yeah, I want to document this. This is the good stuff here. But they were a culture that I believe practiced ayahuasca ceremony, where you ingest ayahuasca. So ayahuasca has become quite well known, but back then, I mean, no one knew about it. Back in the late 50s, early 60s, and went through an ayahuasca ceremony. So this is a plant spirit medicine you ingest. Excuse me. He had profound spiritual visions. I think he writes about them in his book called The Way of the Shaman. So if you're interested, check out that book by Michael Harner. And he essentially, after that experience, his world was shaken. Like what he experienced, he couldn't refute. He experienced these things, great knowledge bestowed upon him, experiences he had, and it totally changed him. It totally changed his rational, materialistic worldview. So he finished up his year of study, I believe, with them. He went back to the States and he couldn't put it down. It's like, what happened to me? So he started studying anthropological studies or teachings and books, and realizing he engaged in shamanic experience. So he started studying shamanic cultures, and he studied hundreds of shamanic cultures. And through that, he developed something called core shamanism. What core shamanism is, what I teach and what other faculty members with the Foundation for Shamanic Studies teach. And it's essentially the core essential practices that all shamanic cultures practice. So what Harner did was, he, as a good scientist, he essentially extracted out the practices or the steps of the practices, which the majority of the cultures he studied practice. So we call that scientific significance, where there's a significant amount of cultures did this practice, he pulled them out. So there's a lot of practices that we don't do, which that are shamanic, that it's just the majority of cultures don't practice. And what he did is he realized that all these cultures are basically doing the same practices, following the same sorts of steps, but they're all kind of imbued with their own cultural rules, cultural dress from a certain time period, a certain geographical region, all had that flavor, a part of it. But if you strip that all away, they're really doing the same thing. So what we teach is the steps, the practices that all shamans have practiced throughout time immemorial, and we teach you that. So you're practicing real shamanism without the cultural aspects. Because we didn't want to appropriate anything either, right? This is something that all humans do, that's common between cultures across time. And we're teaching you the foundational steps that's stripped away from anything else. And it's very powerful work, very powerful work.
That was the steps that I took to the Harner Foundation was in Peru. I read a book by Jeremy Narby called The Cosmic Serpent, and he speaks for like an entire chapter on Michael Harner. And then when I came home, I bought The Way of the Shaman, and that was the beginning of the end for me as soon as I read that thing.
And there's lots of great shamanic books out there, but surprisingly, at the same time, there's not a lot of great shamanic books out there. It's not like some fields of study where there's just shelves and shelves of it. You got to pick and choose with this. And and there's different schools, and I don't think one's better than the other. You got to find out what's right for you. And the one thing I like about the Foundation for Shamanic Studies is just so steeped in ethics, spiritual ethics, which I think is really lost in our New Age culture. And without ethics, it's just you're opening yourself up to a lot of danger for yourself and your client. And you have to have really strong ethics to keep yourself safe and your client safe. And but a lot of good stuff out there. And unfortunately, like us as European fellows, we don't have a lot of access to traditional shamanic stuff, unfortunately. And that's just the way it is. Maybe some people are invited into these ceremonies and some people aren't, but at least we have a way to practice these practices authentically, honoring their traditions, and at the same time we're practicing the core, the essence of them, which all humans have practiced throughout time.
Wowzers. That was awesome, Wade. So those were the questions I had they were sort of the ones that kept coming up. So is there anything we didn't touch on today, Wade, that you'd like to say to sort of, we've been doing this for an hour and a half already.
Yeah, it goes by so quickly.
It does, doesn't it?
I always think I have nothing to say what we're going to talk about today. The next thing you know, it's an hour and a half into it. So, I mean, continue the journey. And I mean, if you got questions, send them to Matt, because I'd rather speak to questions. And at some point, I'm going to do a live Facebook, I think. I haven't got to that yet. I've been promising it, where I answer questions. I let people know. Go to my Facebook site, Shaman Wade, and just friend me, or however you do that. I will friend you.
However that works.
Yeah. I usually get a request and I know how to click accept.
That's right.
Yeah. And check that out. And otherwise, I don't know anything else you can think of that's important that we didn't cover that's kind of pressing.
No, I will speak for everyone who practices. Have you heard anything further from the foundation about live gatherings?
Actually, today I just got an email. So we're still in the wait and see mode.
Okay.
Yeah. So potentially, but I wouldn't hold your breath, maybe this fall for in person. But we're being very cautious. The Delta variant, people are kind of worried about that now. Not everyone's vaccinated. So I know in Alberta it's back to normal here, and like we're even, I think, come August 16th, the quarantine rules are gone. Now, is that wise or not? I don't know. We'll see. I think we're just kind of in the wait and see how things kind of shake out and kind of go from there. I know it's frustrating for a lot of people. I want to get back into community. And I'm on the fence. I don't know what the right thing to do is. There's just so much misinformation. We're in a place of unknowing. We've never historically been in, like, in our time anyway, in a pandemic like this. And it's easy to say, oh, I'm sick of it, enough of that, get your vaccines and that's it. I don't know what the right answer is. And I haven't even opened my office up again because I could, but I'm still not sure if I should, if that's the right thing to do or not. I really don't know. And for some people, it's an easy answer. And for some people, it's not. For me, I'm on the fence and I'm just kind of waiting and seeing as well. So I'll keep everyone posted. But in the meantime, definitely we're going to be doing a lot more online workshops, which are awesome. If you've done any, if you haven't, don't worry. I just had an introduction last weekend. If you missed that, I will have another one this fall, I'm sure. I just haven't set my online workshop fall schedule because I was waiting to figure out if I'm doing my in-person. So I'm probably going to hopefully the next week start setting some fall or online workshops. So check out my website, Calgary Shaman, calgaryshaman.com. Click on the workshop tab and you should find out any upcoming online workshops. And you'll also see the tentatively scheduled in person. And drum circles, we've got to do some more of those soon too.
So, do you have extraction coming up online though?
Yes, so September, I think 18th, 19th, the extraction healing method workshop will be offered. Now, there's quite a few prerequisites. So with the in-person, the prerequisites there's a lot less prerequisites. Usually if you take the introductory, you're welcome to take most of the advanced. Because the in-person or the online workshops, sorry, I may be jumbling things around here, but I hope you're following me. With the online workshops, we can't present all the material. So we have to have more prerequisites to make sure you have the sufficient training to take the next course. We don't want you to get in over your head. And we're very cautious so we don't get into these situations you're talking about, like your friends opening yourself up to things that you don't know what it's gonna do to you. We want to keep you always safe and protected. So there's a lot of prerequisites for the online. So you got to kind of follow more of a stream of courses, but it's well worth it. You get the training you need. So with that workshop, there's quite a few prerequisites. So check out shamanism.org. That's the Foundation for Shamanic Studies website, shamanism.org, and go to their workshops and you can kind of figure out what you need to take. If you have any questions, just give me an email at info@calgaryshaman.com.
I wait every single day for that email, Wade, about the extraction online to come through. So I'm sitting here waiting for you to send that out so I can sign up for it.
Well, I have sent it out. Maybe you missed the email
Did I really? Have you honestly sent that out already?
quite a while ago.
Oh no, it might be in my
Actually,
junk.
when I was on my farm, we got approval to. So that would have been a week and a half ago. I sent out. So yeah. So if you're interested, and there's only 14 spots is right now the maximum I can allow for it, and it's half full right now. I think half or over half full. So if you want to do the shamanism extraction course online, if you got the prerequisites, let me know ASAP. So shoot me an email, or I'll send you the information.
Yeah, make sure you do that, people that are listening, because these limited spots, you need to make sure you get in there. So
That's what I find the problem with emailing is they don't always get through, or with Google, they have like different types of filters, or there's promotions and social media, and
completely,
it doesn't always get through.
but that is that problem because I live in this world. I look for those emails. I send those emails. I was looking for yours and it never came to my inbox. So it's just
Okay.
rotting in my junk box somewhere.
We're going to have to solve that problem. I don't know how to figure that one out. That's always for anyone trying to communicate with people. That's a big frustration. Like, how do you get your emails through, and how do you know if they even got through?
That is.
There's no way to tell.
I have some ideas. We'll take this offline. But
Awesome.
awesome. Well, thank you, Wade. We're an hour and a half already. So I think that's it for today. Is there anything else you'd like to say in closing, or did we catch it all?
Happy long weekend. It's August long
Oh, it
weekend.
is.
And yeah, so have some fun. I'm going to try to have some fun too. It's been a long haul, and it's time to, chill a bit. And I know it's a bit smoky, unfortunately, but maybe have some fun, get the barbecue going, and,
For sure.
have some good fun.
That's awesome. Awesome, Wade. Well, thank you very much. Enjoy your long weekend. All of you that are listening, enjoy your long weekends. And we'll speak to you guys soon. Bye-bye.
Have a good weekend.